The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of the Future of How We Will Watch Movies. And joining me today on the panel are Andrew Hermiz. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Dom. Welcome to the future.
And Father Chip Hines. Welcome to the future.
Oh, I'm so excited. Do we have flying cars now?
So, folks,
I wish.
Yeah, if you want more of this witty banter, remember to like The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows on Facebook. Where we're at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Retweet us on Twitter where we're at SQPN. Leave us comments and let us know what you think of the show and engage with us on social media. We love when you do that. So as you might have gleaned from my opening, we're doing a different kind of discussion today. We're not talking about a movie or a TV show, but we're kind of talking about the state of movie watching in 2020. So we're recording this in August of 2020. And things are a little different these days than they normally have been. And so,
a little bit.
A bit, pretty much in every way. So, movie watching, among other things, has changed dramatically and is probably going to change a lot more before it's done. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. And so we should probably go back to how this all started. But first, how often did you guys go to the movies before COVID, Andrew? How often did you go out to the movies and see a movie in the theater?
Oh, very often. I would say, probably during the summer, when all the big blockbuster movies come out, probably at least twice a month.
Okay.
And I would say at least once a month. So I even after having our daughter, it made it a little harder, but I still try to go out at least once a month. So fairly often. And right before the pandemic, I was just starting to take my daughter to the movies. So I was planning on doing it even more. So yeah, pretty often.
How about you, Father Chip? I know you're a movie buff.
Oh, yeah. I was going to movies all the time. I mean, in Dom, you and I would go to a movie several times. I mean, just to...
About once a month.
It was... Yeah. So it was... Yeah, we were doing saw my fair share of movies with you, and I certainly was seeing movies without you.
Right.
So
and yeah. you write movie reviews for Catholic Digest still, or I know that you were doing that for a while.
I was doing that. The thing that unfortunately they've gone out of business.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They stopped publishing because of COVID, and so that part of my my fun time is gone. So, but
that was sending you to the movies quite a bit as well.
It was, and seeing, but even that, and we can get into this later, but even that was changed over the years as well. So
right. So let's talk about what happened when and things were beginning to change in how people experience movies, first run movies, that sort of stuff before 2020. But 2020 really, I feel like, accelerated things. And so, let's kind of quickly go over what happened in case anybody needs to get a refresher on that. So, yeah, when COVID hit in about March of this year, it hit the U.S. anyway, movie theaters were quickly shut down. All new movie releases were suspended. The biggest blockbusters, huge blockbusters that were coming out in the spring, were pushed back by months and then eventually indefinitely. Like some movies, like the James Bond movie, I'm not sure if it has a new release date yet or not. But
I haven't heard anything on that yet.
Yeah. And then one of the things that was in place before COVID was that the movie studios and the movie theater chains had an agreement. And I don't know whether this was a formal agreement or more of an informal agreement, but they had a basic agreement that first run movies, like the movies that out there hitting for the first time, would get 70 days in theaters before they'd be available streaming or physical media. And that was a big block of time. And the studios had been starting to push back on that because they knew that they could do better if they could get the movies in front of streaming, because people were starting to change their viewing habits and not go to the theaters. So when COVID hit, the first cracks in that agreement came when Universal Pictures decided to do pay-on-demand streaming, or PVOD, for its Trolls World Tour movie in April, instead of releasing it to theaters or holding it for theaters. Because at the time, a lot of people thought, well, it's just going to be a few months and then we'll be back in the theaters again. But I feel like this was an interesting move on the part of Universal, because Trolls World Tour is not a blockbuster movie. I'm guessing that for one thing, it was probably not going to get a huge release in the theaters. And as a movie aimed at kids and with families at home with kids all the time now, parents were probably looking for something for their kids to watch and do. And this was probably an easy get for parents, as opposed to, a big R-rated movie or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it was certainly, but it was successful. It was successful as far as those things go. But it was you're right. Parents and kids were home. So parents, as you are, were looking for things for their kids to do, because they weren't at school, or maybe your kids were still doing school because you did homeschool. Right. But a lot of people were home with their kids, so for the first time ever. So they were looking for movies for them to watch and things for them to do and content for them to be in front of. So I imagine that's why Trolls World Tour did fairly well.
Well, that's the thing, is AMC Theaters, which is, I think, the biggest chain right now, isn't it? I think it's the biggest. If not the biggest, it's one of the top three.
It's one of the biggest, yeah.
So they responded by saying to Universal, we're no longer, because you broke our agreement, which, is stupid because of COVID, but you can't show our movie. But anyway, because you broke our agreement, we will no longer put Universal Theaters movies in our theaters, which is, that's it's kind of a nuclear option there.
Sure is.
So what ended up happening, though, was Trolls grossed $100 million in its first 3 weeks. And because Universal was doing PVOD, they got 80% of that box office, as opposed to the usual 50%. So it was like 130 million box office equivalent in 3 weeks. That's pretty. I mean, that's not like Avengers territory, but it's certainly blockbuster territory. So I mean, not blockbuster, but successful territory for a movie of that type. And AMC had to back down from its threat, and then because they saw the writing on the wall, Universal and AMC eventually agreed that when things go back to some semblance of normal, it will be a 17-day exclusivity instead of 70. So they basically get 2.5 weeks in the theaters instead of 2 months and 10 days. That's a big difference.
Yeah, and after they announced that, pretty much every other theater chain and every other studio gave AMC and Universal crap for that, because they're like, what are you doing? This is a ridiculous deal, first of all, because when things do start going back to normal, it's box office money, as nice as streaming is now, it doesn't compare to box office money. And, especially for big, properties, Universal has, properties like Jurassic Park and, Fast and the Furious. And then, if other studios decide to do that, I mean, they're just, shooting themselves in the foot. And they caught a lot of flack. They caught a lot of flack for that.
Yeah, I think that's part of the bigger discussion I want to have, too, because I think the reason they do it is because they see some trends longer term, but we'll get to that, because I wanted to also mention the two other ways that studios were testing the waters here for what to do next, because the next big thing was Apple went and purchased the Tom Hanks movie Greyhound for Apple TV Plus. So, and they released it. It wasn't pay per view. It was just, if you're a Apple TV Plus subscriber, you get to watch it. But they paid, I think, $70 million for that. I don't know what that covers. I couldn't find out. Like, was it just first run? Do they eventually get to, who gets the money for streaming later? Is it does Apple just own it outright in all forms? I'm not sure what the agreement was on that. But $70 million is not a lot. That movie, if it had hit the theaters, would have earned a lot more than that, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, sure.
I mean, we watched it. You and I watched it, and it was a good movie, and it would have gotten, very good reviews, and it would have been a great big blockbuster hit for Hanks.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it was a good movie.
Right. So 70 million seems a bit of a, on the part of, Apple, a bargain for that movie.
I think so. Yeah.
And now the next big thing, as we record this, the next big test is coming in September with Disney and Mulan. Mulan was going to be one of the big tentpole movies this summer. They're the next live action version of one of their animation movies, and a big movie. And they're releasing it in September on Disney Plus for one-time streaming, $30, which is interesting. You could consider it to be steep or a bargain depending on who you are. If you're a single guy who or gal who want to watch it, that's a lot more than a movie theater ticket.
Right.
If I'm a dad with kids, 2, 3, in my case, 2 parents and 5 kids, go to the movies is $100 plus, thing. But even if it's just 2 people, popcorn and soda, you're quickly at $30. So maybe it's not such a bad deal. And again, it's sort of a family movie, so maybe that makes it easier to ask for $30 for it.
Is this a family movie though? I mean, is it? I know it's Disney and it's live action, and I'm not sure if it's a quote unquote family movie.
I think the marketing for it is, I don't think they've done a good job, because you're right, Father. It does seem like, it could be it looks like an action sort of movie that might be geared towards, older, maybe teenagers or something.
But based on an animation, which is going to draw in a lot of people are going to assume it's like the animation, right?
Right.
That is the thing that's confusing.
It is confusing, and I think, because I was looking at I went back to look to see the story of the Mulan from the cartoon, and then to look at this story, and they're different. They're slightly different stories, and there's characters in the animation that are not in the movie, the live action movie. They've got composite characters now. And there's this whole kerfuffle about, Mulan, and is it, she's a girl, but she's being a boy. And, there's this whole weird undercurrent that's going on now because of the way society is and everything else. But I just wonder if people are going to be fooled by that.
Well, that was in the original too, that she was pretending to be a boy so she could go to war in her father's place.
I know. I get that.
But it has new resonance.
It has new resonance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, whichever it is, it's a big experiment, because depending on how successful this is, Universal's Universal, but Disney basically owns everything else, right? If Disney decides we're not doing theaters anymore, or at least for the near future, so all the Marvel movies, all the Star Wars movies, and all the rest of it is going to be on Disney Plus, and you pay $30 to see it. That would be an earthquake in the film theater industry.
Yeah, that's another thing, about that deal that you mentioned, Dom, between Universal and AMC. Is that deal doesn't really work if you're right, like a studio like Disney doesn't agree to do it across the board, and all the other studios. So it was really, I think, I know you said we'll get back to it, but just wanted to point that out. I think they're trying to set a precedent, and I think the studio like Disney is really the ones to look to see what the future is going to be like.
Well, I think so we can get it. We can start talking about that part of the future of the movies, because the question is what's the future of theaters? Are we going to go back to the theater is the place where you see first run movies primarily, and it's the big experience, the communal experience of going to the movies, or are we going to be shifting our movie experience more to like what we do with Netflix and Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus and Disney Plus and all that sort of thing, and shift that more towards streaming? And we're going to get blockbusters streaming first. And it doesn't have to be all or the other, all one thing or the other. But I feel like that the Universal deal is the crack in the wall that I think Disney wants to break that down. I think Disney wants to, because people people have stopped going to movies as often as they used to. Like the viewership, the attendance at theaters has plummeted over the past 20 years. And the theaters have been were hurting before we got into this. And so I think the studios were thinking, theaters aren't the place. We need something new, and that's why they've been snapping up. Like Disney bought Hulu and started Disney Plus and that sort of thing. And I wonder if coronavirus is just going to accelerate that process away from theaters. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I fear that might be the case. I'm not sure. I mean, I enjoy going to the movies and I enjoy that communal experience. And, so I fear that this might be, at least temporarily, if not permanently, a death knell for the theaters. Because, why would they want to go back to that if they can make the money off of the streaming and off of the pay-per-view? And people have larger TVs now. I mean, you can't get a TV screen probably as big as a movie theater screen, but you still have a pretty good sized screen, and you can enjoy the movies on those big screens. So the only part that I think that people would be missing is the part about going to the movies with a buddy, or with a movie night with your wife, or a night out where you go out to dinner and then go to the movie. But who knows when all that stuff's going to be, a normal thing again. And that's the problem. And plus, I think that if they try to go this way, if Disney just says, no, we're not doing theaters anymore, they're probably going to drive people to Disney Plus, right? I mean, so they're going to get more subscribers than they already have, because people will want to see those movies.
Right. So there'll be a straight up $7 a month to begin with, and then people will be paying a pay-per-view on the first run blockbuster movies on top of that.
Correct. On top of it, right?
And I kind of think that people will be more likely to, and frankly, I'm more likely to rent a movie like a first run movie from home than I am to go out to the theater. It's just. And I know I'm not a typical case, because there's lots of younger people. When I was in my 20s and I wasn't married, I went to the theater a lot more than I do now. But once I had kids, that all changed. And I'm lucky to get to the movie theater a handful of times a year. I would be much more likely to spend some money every month to rent a movie than I am to go out to the movies. And frankly, we could talk about what should a movie cost, a PVOD, a movie rental should cost from home. We could talk about that in a bit, but that's also the part of the question is what's the sweet spot. But you did make a good point, Father Chip. Are home theaters good enough when we weigh them against the time and expense and crowds of theaters? But also, are we losing something by not getting that in-theater experience as well?
Absolutely. I think home theaters, as good as they are, obviously they've leaps and bounds from, every year it seems to be, the technology gets better, TVs get bigger and cheaper, so more and more homes are equipped with, this sort of, home theater experience. But no, nothing can really copy the theater experience at home, unless you are really rich and can build an actual theater in your house. So in my opinion, it's obviously you are losing something, like Father said, that communal aspect and that going out, and doing things. And I am an optimist, but I am a realist too. I try to be, at least. And I think whenever things do get back to normal, if let's say, everyone's saying COVID will go away one day. So whenever that day comes, I think theaters will go back. Honestly, I think theaters will go back to the way they were. And I think there'll be a sort of renaissance in the beginning. I think because people have missed out on that experience for so long. You'll see movies that have no business getting sold out, sell out. You're already seeing that now with like theaters in a lot of states starting to open back up a little bit, getting ready for the release of Tenet and Mulan later on. You're already seeing theaters sell out for those movies. So it tells you the demand is still there. And I believe that from an audience perspective, I think people will want to go back. I know I would. But I feel like, before COVID, we saw the trend of like people not going to the movies as often. I think that's definitely going to stay. It's not going to go back to like, the early 2000s or the 90s, not those sort of numbers. I don't think it's going to get better than what it was, but I think it'll get back to relatively the same sort of levels. Because I think also, not to get too philosophical, but I think, humanity in general, humans in general do a good job of, when we suffer a collective tragedy, I think humans do a good job of bouncing back. I think of like something like 9/11, after that, even though, it's not comparing that to a pandemic, but, people, I remember, even though I was really young, I remember, people thought like the world was changed forever. And it was to an extent. I mean, we had to take our shoes off at the airport and stuff like that. But, things got pretty back to normal after that. People were scared for a second. People thought it was like World War III or, people wouldn't be able to leave their house. But, life just went on. And I think the same thing is going to happen with COVID whenever, there's a treatment or a vaccine or whatever needs to happen for it to go away. I think when that day comes, life and in turn, the theater attendance will go back to normal.
I think another comparison would be to like post-World War II Europe, which pretty quickly by the early 50s had bounced back a lot. So I see your point there. I'm not sure I'm that optimistic. I think there will be a bounce when there's a vaccine and things have opened back up again. I think there will be a bounce, but the trend had always been downward for theaters, and I think that trend is going to continue. And I don't know what the bottom is. I think there will always.
I agree with that.
There will always be a place for the theater experience. That's for sure. I think we will always have art house theaters and local independent theaters. Movie theaters have had a renaissance. I mean, I'm sorry, drive-in movie theaters have had a renaissance lately.
Yeah.
And I think even the big theaters, they've been doing things over the past few years, like serving food and that sort of stuff to make it more of an experience. Putting the big chairs, comfy chairs, all that sort of thing. Right.
Yeah.
So I think those sorts of things. I'm trying to think of like other ways that they could goose things. Now, like for example, subscriptions. You guys remember Movie Pass? That disaster of an app,
right?
What
a disaster!
Yeah, but I think they were onto something, which is people want to subscribe to stuff. They don't want they would rather just pay a set fee every month and get stuff than pay piecemeal. I think there's probably some economic psychological thing that could explain it. But if there was a dollar amount. Say, what if there was, say, you pay $30 a month and you get 3 movies a month or 4 movies a month, or $500 a year and you get as many movies as you want. There's always the outlier, the guy who'll go to a movie every day. He'll try to use it up, but there'll be plenty of people. It's like the gym. There'll be plenty of people who go. The first month they'll go 4 times, and by the 6th month they're forgotten they've got it, and they're like, oh, I better use a movie up this month. You know what I mean? But like a $500 a year. What do you think of like a subscription model for movie going?
We're conditioned for it right now with Netflix and Disney Plus and all the streaming services that are out there. So it has a potential for sure, and I think it's just a matter of trying to find the right price. You were mentioning the right price earlier for the movie at home. I just, for me, $30 is, I'm not going to pay it. I'm not paying $30 to see Mulan, as much as I'd like to see it because it looks kind of, interesting. But I'm not paying $30 to see it. I'm just not.
Yeah.
And because it's just cost ineffective. So if they brought it down to, I don't know, $12, $15 for it, I'd consider it, because that's about the price of a movie.
I think, well, it's about the price of the ticket, but it's not the price of the movie experience, because almost everybody buys refreshments, popcorn or, a drink or something like that. Yeah. I bet if they brought it down to 20, so I would pay $20 for, say, a Mulan. I would pay $30. I'd pay $50 for Star Wars, because again, like I said, for me, and this is the big difference for me, taking my family, all 7 of us, to go see Star Wars, that's $100 plus experience. I'm glad there's only one Star Wars a year. Actually, at this point, we're not even getting that, but never mind. That sort of thing. So that's a good point. The good point is maybe they would have multiple price points, different, blockbuster movies would be a little more. Movies that aren't expected to do as well might be a little less. I mean, we've never had a thing where apart from like matinee showings sort of things, but they've never had different ticket prices for different movies.
True. And I think that, I'm just speaking for myself, but I remember going to see Star Wars in the theater in 1977 with my parents, and, I was 9, and I just can't imagine going to see, like, not seeing Star Wars in the theater. Like, that would blow my mind,
I agree. In fact, I was just saying to my wife, Melanie, tonight, like, when I went to see The Force Awakens 2015, which was going to be the first good Star Wars movie in like 25 years. Sorry to the prequel lovers, but high hopes then. And all these people were at the theater. It was and people in costume, and it was a party atmosphere. Yep. And there was a kid it was his birthday. And he was handing out bags of candy to everybody. And it just was like a gathering of the family. And that sort of experience is what movie theaters are about. But if I'm going to go see, like, I don't know, the latest Jason Bourne movie, I don't necessarily, that's not the same sort of thing. You know what I mean? So There are some movies that deserve that, but then there are the other movies where, like, there's the jerk in the row ahead of me who keeps looking at his phone during the whole movie and taking me out of the experience because it lights up and I won't stop, and when you're at home, you can pause the movie and, go to the bathroom or refill your drink, as opposed to when you're at the theater and the kid leans over just at the good part of the movie and says, "Daddy, I have to go to the bathroom." It's like, can you hold it?
Right.
So there's the balancing of those things. But like I said before, I think there will always be a place for the blockbuster movie experience or the date night experience. But I think
absolutely,
I think the balance is going to shift away from the theater.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And like you mentioned, we saw that trend happening before the pandemic. And yeah, as long as, Marvel's making, movies, and Warner Brothers is making big DC movies, and you have the big tentpole IP properties, like they have to live in the theater. It makes financial sense for the studios if they're going to invest that much money into a movie to release them in theaters. And as you said, the people are going to want that. And I think we've been seeing the trend of, these smaller movies, like the independent to mid-level, type action movies, the romantic comedies, a lot of kids movies, they're just going straight to streaming. And I think the premium VOD model I don't think, I think Trolls was like an exception because it was kind of like the first one.
It was the only one.
And it was a kid's.
The only one, yeah.
And it was a kid's movie. But I don't think that model is going to be really successful in the long run because, like Father mentioned, I don't think most people, if they see, a movie that's, on the, like Trolls or like a John Wick type movie, people be like, okay, why should I spend the $30 now, or should I just wait until it's eventually on one of my streaming services, for just coming with my normal package. I know for me, I'm not going to pay $30 for a movie like that. I'll just wait until I can, watch it on streaming or rent it for cheaper on Amazon or something like that. So I think that model isn't really going to work. I think it can work if they do it in conjunction with these bigger properties. So is this like another option for those people who don't want to go out to the movie theaters? Is this extra money in the bank for the studios to make if they want to watch it at home?
That's a good point.
And that was being discussed even before the pandemic.
Well, that's the thing. So if you go with this model of the 17-day exclusivity that AMC and Universal came up with,
which will never happen. I'll say that right now. It will never happen because movie theaters are committing suicide if they do that.
Let me throw this hypothetical at you then. So 17 days exclusivity in the theater. Then on day 18, PVOD for $30 or $20 at home for the rest of the, say, 50 days. And so you're capturing the people who absolutely must see it first and must see it in the theater. And then you're gathering up all those people who couldn't be bothered to go out to because I'm in that boat already, which we just talked about before. I'm going to look at going, I can, find some night to go out to the theater, spend a ridiculous amount of money, probably have to find a babysitter, and do all that hassle, or I could just wait till it's on Amazon or iTunes and like either rent it or buy it if I really want to see it. I mean, I could buy it, most of those movies for when they're first on purchase for like $25 already, so it's not even that big of a difference in that case. I try to wait for the rental even if I really must. But anyway, so there's already I think there's already a large group of people who are already waiting. So I don't know that's as huge of a disincentive to try this new model. But I think if they do some sort of hybrid where a shorter exclusive period in the theaters and then PVOD for a longer period, and then it goes to streaming and Blu-rays and all that sort of stuff that you normally would do anyway after that. I think that might be a model that sort of satisfies everyone.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dom. And I think it's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be a mixture of different things, and they're going to try different things until they find which works and which is the most profitable for all of them. There is a symbiotic relationship between, the theaters and the movie producers, the movie companies. So they need to figure something out, because I don't think they want to see, I may be wrong, but I don't think they want to see the movie theaters go out of business. And so they're going to have to work something out to make sure that they can, keep this thing going, for the foreseeable future. Anyway, who knows how long, who knows what the next big thing is going to be. 25 years ago, we wouldn't have even imagined that we could have watched a first run movie right away at home. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, when Dom and I are the same age. I can remember as a kid when the new James Bond movie was coming out or something like that. I was like, oh man, I gotta go see it. Or the Indiana Jones movie.
Well, if you didn't see it in the theater, you didn't see it.
You didn't see it, right?
Exactly.
So it's a different time, and I think that everybody knows that. Everybody in the industry knows that, and I think that they're going to probably have to try and work together to make it as profitable for everybody, because they do need each other in a certain sense.
What do you think about this? What about Apple or Amazon or Netflix buying the chains? So say Amazon buys AMC or Disney buys AMC.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Now, it used to be that the big studios owned their own theater chains, like Paramount Theaters was owned by Paramount Studios, but that got broken up by the government for monopolistic reasons, antitrust reasons. But if they're showing every so I don't know if that even still applies. I'd have to consult a antitrust expert. But what if they could buy the chain and make it an experience like Amazon with Whole Foods? You can go and you can pick up your package and go see a movie while you're there on Amazon Prime movies. And because I'm an Amazon Prime member, I get a discount or I get a free movie a month or something. Well, I mean, what do you think of the big tech giants buying the theater chains?
I think that's it's potentially disastrous. I mean, for the monopoly sort of reasons. Because you can if Disney starts owning theater chains, then whenever a Marvel movie comes out, they'll just play the next Black Widow in like every theater every hour, and maybe show one or two movies like maybe once a day, or something like that. They can really monopolize it if they were capable or able to do that. But I think if that were, because the theaters are suffering so much, I guess that is, I don't know if anything's been discussed, but I know that's been thrown out there. If that was something that was going to be potentially an option, I think there would have to be deals across the board with all the studios, akin to something like how Disney and Sony made a deal to kind of borrow Spider-Man, for between Marvel and Sony, where they kind of both can benefit from it. So I think obviously this would be a much more complex deal, where they would have to figure something out. So I think at the end of the day, it's probably not a good idea because one studio is going to benefit over the other, and independent theaters are probably going to suffer a lot as they already have. And they'll probably go extinct if something like that happens. But yeah, I don't see it happening. But again, who's going to buy out these chains if they go bankrupt? And companies like Apple and Disney have the money to do that. So
right.
I guess that's at least worth thinking about.
I think Amazon would probably be the one that does it. I mean, it makes sense. He's got all the money in the world, and he can, pump content into these theaters from, a huge library of stuff. And he'd probably find some innovative way, to make it so that we could all, like you were talking about those subscriptions and everything else. So I just have a feeling that if anybody's going to do it, it'll be Bezos.
Remember when we used to worry about Walmart taking over retail?
Yeah.
Now it's going to be
not
Amazon.
anymore.
Not anymore. So I mentioned before drive-in movies, and this has kind of been my pet project, is to reimagine drive-in movies. I have a sad life, but because I love the idea of a drive-in theater, like the idea of you drive in with your car, and it's the perfect like coronavirus social distancing sort of experience, right? You drive in, you've got the big screen in front of you, and now, Father Chip, you probably remember what it was like as a kid. You get that tinny the speaker that you'd hang in the window, and you could hardly hear anything. And you'd have to like crouch down to see out the front window of the car, or maybe Dad would back the station wagon in and you'd hang off the back of it. But we could do, like with the technology we have, you could have an app on your phone that you run through the car's speaker system that's synced to the screen, and you could order refreshments that get brought to the car from the app. There's so much that could be done with the drive-in movie theater experience, which frankly, unless you live, somewhere below the Mason-Dixon, is a only part of the year experience, because you can't do drive-ins in the winter, obviously. Maybe you could if you keep the car running.
You can't. No, you can't.
It would be a stretch. But
they're not coming back, Dom. Sorry.
Well, I think in the realm of like the art house theater, like the local independent theater, I think drive-in theaters could. My opinion is the coronavirus social distancing stuff is not going to go away at the turn of a key or the drop of a hat or the injection of a vaccine. I think it's going to be a long, slow readjustment to a different reality of way of doing things. And I think there'll be the longer this goes on, the longer it will take for people to adjust out of it. That's my feeling. And so the longer that this goes on, if we go another summer like this, for instance, I think next summer you will see a lot more, these old drive-ins reopening, or, and that sort of thing. These social distancing friendly things. But that's just my pie in the sky prediction. I'm probably wrong.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I mean, I know Southern California is different, but drive-ins have made a huge comeback here. Obviously, because first, it's the only place you can watch a movie outside of your house in California, and we don't have a choice. And second, yeah, it's kind of turned into like a an experience sort of thing. I mean, we have a local drive-in here in San Diego. We have a couple of them, and really before the pandemic, it's like you would just go there for nostalgia, or if you wanted to just watch something late night in the car with your friends or whatever. But now it's turned to this whole thing, and I think you're right, Dom. I don't know if they're going to make a huge comeback to where it's going to be competing with theaters once things go back to normal a little bit. But I think what it will take is someone investing in drive-ins, because the technology does need to get better. Because I don't know what drive-ins look like around your town. The drive-ins are still very run down here. The picture is never bright enough, and the audio is, if you're playing it in your car or on a little speaker, it's really not the best sound quality. And if it's going to be something for the long haul, I think if some business-minded people see a future in drive-ins and are willing to invest the money, because the technology is out there. There are amazing projectors out there now. There's so newer cars have better sound systems, so there are ways to make that experience a lot better. And I think if someone's willing to invest in it, I think it could make a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah, especially in those areas where it can be more of a year-round experience. Definitely.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The drive-ins just it's hard to get into a drive-in around here. They're sold out all the time.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, we're in a special time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't expect that is going to be the case.
That's the one caveat. Yeah.
The question is that will people feel comfortable going back? Like Andrew, you said, once we can go back, people will go back. And so there was a poll conducted in mid-May. So this, take it with a grain of salt. This is before everything started to reopen again this summer. But as of then, 70% of people said that they'd rather watch a first-run feature as a digital rental at home than go out to a brick-and-mortar theater with a live audience. I would love to see that poll today, because it's probably, that number is probably a lot lower. There's probably a lot more people willing to go out now. But what do you think? I mean, I assume you guys think that people are going to be willing to go out to theaters coming up. I know the theaters are bargaining on that.
I think at some point people are going to go back. I mean, it's just, honestly, it's I don't imagine that we're going to be shut up in our homes for the rest of our lives. And, they're going to figure a way out of this, whether it's a vaccine or a treatment. And, and who knows what it's going to be. But I can't imagine that it's going to be like this for, a decade. I mean, I just can't. So I mean, I'm happy to go back. I'd go back right now. If you wear a mask and you social distance, I don't have a problem with it.
I agree with Father. I think people are going to go back. And if you took that poll today, I agree. I think that number would be lower, because if you look, like I mentioned before, you look at ticket sales, you look at the pre-sale for a Tenet. I read somewhere it's outpacing, Inception and Interstellar. So, there's something going on there. I mean, now that movie, I read that almost half of the movie theaters in the nation are opening. And that's without California and New York. So seeing those numbers kind of tells you where people are at right now. And I think of something like Comic-Con, Comic-Con here in San Diego was canceled, obviously. People had the option to transfer their tickets to next year or to get a full refund. And 99% of the people transferred to the next year. So there's at least people are hoping and wanting to be, to go to these big communal sort of experiences, like going to the movies and going to conventions. So I think the want and the sort of desire is still there, and the hope is that whenever we kick this thing, people, I think, will start going back to the theaters.
I agree.
Just tonight, actually, before we started recording, I got an email from Showcase Cinemas, which is part of National Amusements, and that's they said your local theater is opening up this weekend, Labor Day weekend, and talk about like all of the health and safety precautions they're taking and all of that's involved in the auditorium capacity and that sort of thing. So I think they're banking on it. One of the things they're offering, which I thought was interesting, is private screenings for up to 25 of your friends, to up to 25 people. You can rent a whole theater for your group. You can watch classic movies. You can watch first run movies, and it will cost between $300 and $500, which comes out to about 20 bucks a head at the higher end. Which is an interesting model, because then you get it's just you and your friends or family. I think that's it's at least it's different. It's innovative. It's trying something new.
Can we pause it?
I gotta get a big pause button. Yes.
Can we pause? I gotta go to the bathroom. Can we pause it?
So will you sit through a movie with a mask on the entire time?
If I have to, I will.
Okay, because that's what they're going to require at the showcase anyway, is masked at all times. Which I'm not sure. Does that mean then there's no food and drink?
Yeah, how do you eat popcorn with a mask?
That's the thing is, I wonder if it's not going to be permitted.
I'm not sure. That's actually a good question.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the theaters.
You could use a straw for your soda, so kind of sneak it underneath.
Yeah, right.
That's where the theaters make all their money. So
I know
exactly.
They got to have to figure something out.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. I mean, the other part of this is on the production end of the theater, of the movie business, the movie and TV business. So many productions have been, the stuff that was being made has been thrown into chaos. We don't know when anything, like they're just starting to get back into filming movies and getting back on set, and they have all these restrictions, and they're quarantining the cast and crew for 2 weeks before, and there's all this stuff. What do you think? How do you think this is going to affect all of these movies that we've been waiting for, like the Marvel Phase 3 and the future Star Wars movies and all this other stuff that we've been looking forward to? What do you guys think? How is this going to affect? Because that also affects the theaters too, which is, if they don't have anything good to show, nobody's coming to the theater. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to affect, obviously protocols on set. I mean, you can read about, a lot of movies are actually going back into production. So I think overall it's not going to affect productions that much because studios are going back to business for the most part. The Batman is getting geared to go back to filming in September. They had to shut down obviously during the pandemic, and they're going to go back to shoot in England. I think if you think like the NBA bubble, the NBA I think has done a good job as far as mitigating the spread of it within the league. On a film set, you don't have nearly as many people, as 26 teams and their staff. So I think there are ways that they could definitely, mitigate any sort of potential spread and stuff like that on a film set. Especially now that more and more movies are filming on sound stages. that's probably what you'll see more of is choosing to film on sound stages as opposed to filming on location. So it might affect it in that way in the short term. Because obviously there's more control on a set like that. But
right.
But I think overall, these studios need, they have to make their bottom line, and the audience has expectations of how movies are supposed to look, and if you're gonna make a Marvel movie and you're gonna spend $150 million making it, it has to look a certain way, and there's only certain ways to do it. So you got to do it the right way, and so I don't think studios are gonna skip a beat.
The Mandalorian's virtual sets may become all the more important for those soundstage filming.
Yes, great point. Yeah, the technology like that is going to make it a lot easier.
Yep,
indeed.
And cheaper.
I agree. Yep. I agree.
All right. Any last thoughts on the future of movie watching for either of you gentlemen? Father Chip?
I just want to go back to the movies. That's all I know.
Please.
I'm just tired. I'm tired of all this, and I know everybody's tired of it all, and so I think that's just what I'm looking forward to, is just going back to the movies. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. None of us has a crystal ball that tells us what it's going to be. So,
yeah,
I mean, I just hope that it goes back to some semblance of normal, and whatever normal is going to be, that's fine with me.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, I'll just echo everything Father said. I just, God willing, we were able to, join together again and have these sort of experiences at the theater and all that sort of stuff. And, obviously what we're talking about is not the most important thing in the world, but,
sure. No.
It's a way for us to have, hope, for our future, to talk about, going back to the movies and stuff like that. So, I think, there is something to look forward to. And I think that the theater experience, as much as, media outlets or polling or whatever, where studios say that, everything is just gonna go move to streaming. I think that's, baloney. I think movie theaters, are going to have a renaissance and kind of just come back in a big way.
Okay.
So, that's where I'm at.
There you go.
I think things are going to change. From my point of view, I don't think theaters will ever go away. I think there'll always be a place for theaters. I think things will shift towards streaming and on demand. But there'll always be a place for theaters, including for me. I'll always want to see Marvel, an Avengers movie or a Star Wars on the big screen, just like when I was a kid. So, and I want to take my kids to that. So, all right. So let's wrap things up there. That was a great discussion. Before we finish, I do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of movies and TV shows, including Brent B., Bob M., Anthony V., Attila H., and Brandon Q. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of movies and TV shows and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. Now we want to hear from you. What do you think is the future of movie watching? What is going to happen? How are we going to watch movies in 2021, 25, 2030? Let us know. And let us know what you think of this format of us talking about movies in a bit of a meta way as opposed to about particular movies or TV shows. We want to hear from you. So let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/secrets or the StarQuest Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to secrets@sqpn.com. Until next time, Father Chip Hines, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of movies and TV shows.
Thank you, Dom. It was a pleasure.
Andrew Hermiz, thank you as well.
As always, a pleasure.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the secrets of movies and TV shows on StarQuest, and we'll see you at the movies.